boss and the candy man. Like a freight train rolling, bringing truth bombs down the line. Promoting the Southland 1 week at a time. Promoting the Southland 1 week at a time. SCV chat starts now.
It is 7 o'clock on a Monday afternoon, so you know it is time. It is time for your weekly episode of SCV Chat. Before we get started, please remember, the views and opinions expressed in this broadcast are not necessarily the views and opinions of the SCV, its GEC, nor divisions, brigade, camps, or other subsidiaries, strictly those expressing them. How is everybody doing in Dixieland tonight? We have a show that is going to mean a lot to me. And I'm actually not going to be doing a lot of talking tonight. I'm going to let an expert talk tonight. And we'll be introducing him shortly. I'm buying him time so I can share this episode out because I've somehow wound it up in over, I guess, about 100 heritage groups. And I'm sharing this one out majorly. So I'm asking everybody else to please help me out and share this episode out as wide of a net as you can. Because tonight we are defending a hero. Tonight we're defending my namesake. Tonight we are defending General Nathan Bedford Forrest. And just a awfully written slander piece. Just done really, in my opinion, to just point more to the agenda that General Forrest was this evil man that is just, the worst of the worst. And we're going to be fighting that tonight. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, let me move it. I have been using this to hold up my desk and to prop my muddy boots on. It is Bill O'Reilly's Confronting Evil, the worst of the worst. I originally wanted to call this episode Confronting Stupidity after the article that Dr. Mitcham has already written on this. But I thought Bill O'Reilly versus Nathan Bedford Forrest just sounds more authentic because that's what this is. It is just a plain up attack. And so, yep, it's going to be a good one. You already know we got Dr. Mitcham on. It's going to be a good one. So I'm almost done sharing this out, and I will introduce the guest of honor. And I still cannot believe stuff like this happens. And so I am looking forward to tonight's episode. Again, General, my father, myself, and my grandfather are all named after General Forrest. And tonight's just one of those nights where I'm a bit fired up. But luckily for me, I have a gentleman on that is going to put some actual thought into it. So if you don't know, again, I'm going to share out the article that Dr. Mitcham wrote. And again, I encourage everybody to read the article. It will be posted on SCV Chat Facebook tomorrow, and I will be posting a link on the website tomorrow. Nathan Bedford Forrest, Confronting Stupidity, Bill O'Reilly versus Nathan Bedford Forrest. And, of course, Commander-in-Chief Kennedy and Dr. Mitcham already got together to make a video on it. So we wanted to make an episode on it. We want to get this as much coverage as possible. So I say all that to say this. I'm asking everybody to support the article, the video that will be coming out soon, and to share this episode out and to watch this episode, because we will be diving into a lot. And I almost have his long record of stuff loaded. I thought I had beaten him to it for once, but I cannot bring on Dr. Mitcham without giving his introduction. I know he probably would like me to. He's a very humble man, but I have to point out his accomplishments. And to prove again, Bill O'Reilly, our famous historian. So, I don't know who I'm going to believe here. But Dr. Mitcham, of course, was born in Louisiana, attended Northeast Louisiana University, North Carolina State University, and got his PhD from the University of Tennessee. A professor of genealogy and military history. He has written over 40 phenomenal books, including It Wasn't About Slavery, Exposing the Great Lie of the Civil War, Bust Hell Wide Open, The Life of Nathan Bedford Forrest, one of my favorite books. A book on Vicksburg, the Encyclopedia of Confederate Generals, the Encyclopedia of Union Generals, The Voices from the Confederacy, also one of my favorite books out there. One of the best history books that shows a spotlight on the everyday soldier. So again, check that out. And of course, he is a recipient of numerous historical awards, including the United Daughters of the Confederacy Jefferson Davis Gold Medal. So without any further ado, everybody, let us bring on Dr. Sandy Mitcham.
Well, thank you very much, Moose. I want to do this a little differently from what we did our recording on up in Mississippi. I took the article that Bill O'Reilly wrote, if he wrote it. Frankly, I don't think he did. I think this was farmed out, outsourced, if you will, and then was bollocksed. It's a terrible job. I haven't seen anything this bad. I never saw anything this bad, even from graduate students who didn't make it. I just took the chapter and I numbered the mistakes that he made. I got over to 40 and I quit. But some a decently educated freshman wouldn't have done. But let's start. Number one, the terrified Union soldiers were surrounded. Well, they weren't terrified, they were drunk. There were 600 of them, he got that right, and they were armed with Springfield rifles. No, there weren't. He didn't get the nomenclature of the units right, the designation. He said it was the 6th Artillery. That would have been a regular Army unit. It would have been white. They didn't have a 6th, but they had 4th and 3rd, etc. The designation they used for African-American units in those days was USCT, United States Colored Troops. And this was a 6th United States Colored Troop battalion. And that number was, it meant something. It meant that they were ill-equipped. It meant that they were badly officered. The USCT only had the worst officers as a general rule. Yeah, I know. I saw glory, and Colonel Shaw was a hero. But what I saw, I'm a graduate of Commander Joel Staff College. I'm qualified to the rank of Major General. I see things a little differently from a Hollywood producer. I saw an incompetent white officer volunteer for a suicide mission and take his entire command with him, and he was slaughtered. That was fairly typical of USCT officers. I said the men were armed with Springfield rifles. Was probably not. A few of them had rifles, obsolete weapons. Some of them had swords. A great many of them had clubs. No firearms at all. And clubs are not very effective against Confederate soldiers. armed with 6 shooters. They were almost out of ammunition. That was not true. Hadn't slept in 2 days. That was not true. They had a 100-foot wall looking down at the rebels. Well, O'Reilly, who wrote this, got that wrong too. There was no wall. There was a bluff. And it was 80 feet high, but that was located to the west. On the eastern side, the direction in which the Confederates were coming, it was 6 to 8 feet high. So it was, if it had been 100 feet, how are you going to get over it? But because Forrest and his men didn't have any ladders, but 8 feet was, they didn't have any problem scaling it. The 3 units there were the 6th USCT artillery, 2 guns from the 2nd USCT artillery, and they were all light. According to the table of organization and equipment, the 6 should have had 18 to 30 heavy artillery pieces. They didn't. They were light. And then you also had the 13th U.S. Tennessee Cavalry Regiment. It was called Tennessee Tories. And it was about as sorry a unit as you can imagine. The men there were what we in Marouge, Louisiana would call white trash. Many of them were deserters. And that's why you have a hard time pinning down how many people were at Fort Pillow, because it was a revolving door. These guys would come in, and like on April 10th, when they heard a rumor Forrest was coming, a great many of them deserted, and with good reason, because Colonel Bell's brigade was made up of Tennesseans. They knew these guys, and many of them were Confederate deserters. And what do you think happened to them? But this total fiction. Thousands of rats were scurrying around. The corpses, they were starving. No. For the last 30 days, Confederate forces had been bombarding Fort Pillow. Well, no, that's untrue. There were no Confederates firing on Fort Pillow until April 12th, the day the fort fell. This is pure fiction. 30-day siege? No way. He has the Confederate strategic objective to recapture the Mississippi. No, it wasn't. They knew they couldn't. Well, they could recapture it for a day or two, but you'd lose your entire command in the process. Why bother? And what was it Field Marshal Irvin Rommel, the Desert Fox, said? Never fight a battle when you don't gain anything by winning it. And you know what George S. Patton said? Never fight a battle when you don't gain anything by winning it. And although Forrest didn't have the advanced training of these 2 men, he had a great deal of common sense, and he knew that it wasn't any reason to take the fort, militarily speaking. So you got to ask yourself, why did he do it? Well, one word: chivalry. Forrest put women on a pedestal. He loved them, not in a physical sense, but he admired women much more than he admired men. And he was a lot tougher on the men than the women. And if a woman needed his help, and any way he could provide it, he did. And he had just engaged in his 3rd West Tennessee raid. It was highly successful. He captured or killed more Yankees than he had. I guess I should start with Okolona. He was Forrest had a dispute with Braxton Bragg, the commander of the Army of Tennessee in late 1863, and asked for a transfer. Now, he'd asked for transfers before, but this time the transfer was accompanied by a death threat. So Bragg let him go, and he went to North Mississippi, where he was given a command of 450 men. He made a raid into West Tennessee. The Yankees weren't worried. As General Herbert, the commander in Memphis, said, we'll round him up after the roads dry. Well, Forrest didn't wait for the roads to dry. He recruited an entire small army of cavalry and escaped attempted Union encirclement with like 4,000 men. He gave some of them to the infantry. Then he fought the Battle of Okolona. He had 2,500 men. The Yankees had 7,000, and he was the Green Beret of the Union cavalry. Hand-picked, the best horses. Sharp's repeating rifles, the best rifle of its time for cavalry. They didn't have anything to encumber them. They had only wagons they had were for artillery and ambulances. They had double sets of horseshoes. These people were ready. Forrest met him with 2,500 men, but 600 of his men weren't even armed. And Forrest put them in the line anyway, said, I know you can't shoot, but you can yell. And don't worry, you will have your pick of good Union rifles shortly. And Forrest tore them limb from limb. Outnumbered 3-1, he whipped them. He chased them 11 miles and personally killed 5 Yankees. He was a little bit furious because his brother Jeffrey was killed early in the battle. And as a reward, the commander of the Army of Mississippi, Bishop Leonidas Polk, gave him a reward, a Kentucky brigade of 1,700 men. The problem was only 700 of them had horses. She had 1,000 men, and everybody was riding double, and it wasn't much of a unit. But Forrest didn't let that worry him. He knew where to get horses. The Yankees in western Tennessee and western Kentucky had plenty of good horses, so he went up and captured them. And by the time he got through, the brigade was a couple of thousand men, and everybody was mounted. He was coming back from this raid when at least 2 groups of women we know about asked him for private consultations. And naturally, he acceded to this. And they told him stories of insults and assaults. And some of these women had been raped. And this threw Forrest into a cold rage. Because as I told you, he loved women. And would not tolerate anybody who abused a woman. He would not allow anybody to tell a dirty joke in the presence of a woman. One of his best friends had sex outside of marriage. And Forrest found out about it and fired him, threw him out of the army, cashiered him, said, I will not have in my army any man who would do that to a woman. So that was the reason for attacking Fort Pillow. This garrison was out of control. Not just the black units, but white units as well. Anyway, he rode up on the morning of April 12th. There were no other Confederate units there. They were just Forrest cavalry. The O'Reilly made the facility at Fort Pillow 1 acre in size. Fort Pillow was actually designed by Confederate General Patrick Claiborne. It was designed for 20,000 men, and it was 1,642 acres in size. So he got that wrong. The 1 acre was the Rodan, the last defensive position. And he doesn't go into any depth, probably because he can't. Probably doesn't know how to analyze terrain. When I was at West Point, the first thing they did, the first course for the freshmen, the plebes, was terrain analysis. The Rodan was 1 acre in size, and it was incredibly badly positioned. It was at the edge of the fort. I had only one route of escape, and it was down a bluff 80 feet high, but the path was only 2 or 3 feet wide in places. And it was below the height of the surrounding hills. The hills were higher, which meant the Confederates could control by fire the interior of the fort. I've seen worse defensive positions, but not many. Anyway, the Union commander was, pretty bad. He put out, his name was Booth originally. There was a major named Bradford who commanded the colored regiment, and he took the test to become a colonel twice, and they weren't particularly difficult, but he failed it twice. So the commander in Memphis put General Booth in charge. Booth was not particularly bright either, and he paid for it with his life. He was shot in the chest by one of the snipers in the hills. So Bradford took over, and what he did was put out barrels of whiskey, ale, and beer, so the troops could have full access to the liquor. They called that Dutch courage in those days. Well, as soon as Forrest got there, he heard of that, and he laughed. He said, I want to drink. I'll let them get good and drunk before I attack. And they did. And you got to remember, these African-American troops were 1 year out of slavery. They had no practice in holding the liquor. Nassau didn't give away whiskey to his slaves. Typically on the southern plantation, not all of them, there's no general rule here, but a male slave would get 1 shot of whiskey once a year on Christmas Eve. He'd line up his slaves and give them a shot. Merry Christmas. And that was it. They had no practice in holding their liquor, so they were drunk and they were not ready for it. O'Reilly said it before it was captured by General Ross. No, the fort was evacuated on the order of General Beauregard. It was not taken by the Yankees. And he said surrender was not an option. That's not true. Forrest twice gave him the option to surrender. And they kind of made him mad, and they made the white Southerners mad because they were drunk and they were hooting and yelling and shouting insults. One of them was, attack us, you blank rebels, and we won't take any prisoners if you do. No quarter. Well, since they weren't going to give any quarter, neither did the rebels. And they told the Confederates to do things that were biologically impossible anyway. And that made them mad. That's the last thing you want to do. If you're surrounded on 3 sides with a river to your back, you don't want to tick off the other guys. But they did. The author of this piece said he well knew his command made him a target, as rebels do not usually capture integrated forces, they kill them. That's not true either. Now, that happened. I mean, there were some atrocities. But, in military parlance, at least the way I learned it, massacres when everybody or almost everybody's killed, like the Alamo, Little Bighorn, Thermopylae, places like that. That didn't happen at Fort Pillow. Half of them were. And there were some atrocities. There were some people who were killed who shouldn't have been. But that's a little bit different from a massacre. And, of course, he has the Confederate Congress passing a law. Any black person captured in battle will not be taken prisoner. That's not true. Matter of fact, the law stated that they would attempt to send them back into slavery, to return them to their master, if possible, because they knew that some of these blacks were not there voluntarily. They didn't volunteer for the Union Army. They were drafted. In fact, when the rebels first overran the positions, some of them played dead. And when the second wave of Confederates came over, they begged them to take them prisoner and said, "We don't shoot me." I was scripted, short for conscripted or drafted. They scripted me. And a lot of Forrest men believe that, because it happened quite a bit. Of course, Lincoln's report after the action said that some of the blacks were crucified. That was not true. Some of them were buried alive. Well, there was one who was buried alive. What happened? The rebels went by, and a couple of boys noticed one of the corpses was breathing. This African American was playing dead. So they thought it'd be fun to throw him in the grave, cover him with dirt, and see what happened. So they did, and he came straight up out of the grave, and the Confederates fell to their knees going, "It's the second resurrection. It's the Black Lazarus." And they humiliated him a little bit. I don't have any great problem with that. They didn't shoot him. He shouldn't have played dead that long. And they sent him back to the rear, and I don't know if he was sent back to slavery or not. Those who were captured and they couldn't identify their masters, or they were behind Union lines, were put into labor battalions. Now, a labor battalion would never be mistaken for Boca Raton, but you could survive it. They were fed beans and rice, and you can live on beans and rice. The end of slavery was about a year away. So they managed to survive the war. The white deserters were treated quite differently. They were forced to their knees and shot in the back of the head. We know of 64 deserters who were captured, but only 17 of them survived. They came out worse than the African Americans. Plus, many of the whites who were captured were sent to Andersonville. And quite frankly, you're better off in a labor battalion than you are in Andersonville. So, they got virtually everything wrong. They got Ulysses S. Grant stopping the prisoner exchange because of the Fort Pillow massacre. Actually, that's untrue. He did break off some negotiations that Beast Butler was conducting at that time, but Grant wanted to end the negotiations. He didn't want the prisoner exchange to happen again. The prisoner exchange actually ended on July 30th, 1863, and it was broken off by General Order 252, drafted by Abraham Lincoln. They didn't want to trade prisoners anymore. Prisoner exchange worked to the benefit of the Confederates. The Yankees were fighting a war of attrition, and if the Confederates got out of prison, as Grant complained to Congress, they go right back into the Confederate Army. A Union exchange prisoner, if he went back to the Army at all, took a long furlough and went home. And many of them would not return to the Army. Their enlistments had expired, and they went home. So it was to the benefit of General Lee and his armies to end the prisoner exchange. It was the benefit of, the benefit of Grant and his people, not Lee. Lee wanted to continue it. Anyway, that's, we're down to, I think, 13 mistakes. We've got some more to go. They make a lot of them. Forrest, personally, they got wrong. Said he was a brutal slave trader. Actually, he was considered the best of a bad lot. Forrest never beat his slaves. Now, some Forrest partisans, well, you know me, I tell it warts and all. Some Forrest partisans said this proves what a humane man he was. Well, actually, it doesn't. Because if you if you see a slave has been beaten, you assume that it was a troublesome slave. And if you're trying to sell a slave, as Forrest was, and he's been beaten, the man who's going to buy it's going to drop the price if he doesn't cancel the deal altogether. So it was in Forrest's financial interest not to beat the slaves. But by and large, they preferred to be under Forrest than anyone else. In fact, when the war began, 43 of them joined Forrest's army. He offered them a deal. You ride with me, and if we lose the war, you'll be free. But if we win the war, I will free you, so you'll be free with your family in any case. And they did, and he did free them all. One of them deserted to the Yankees, 1 out of 43. And after the war was over, Forrest said of the blacks who rode with him, better Confederates never lived. And a great many of them took part in the fighting, according to official records, which I cite in my book, Bust Hell Wide Open. Kind of surprised the Yankees that you had African Americans fighting for the South. But as Frederick Douglass told Abraham Lincoln early in the war, if you don't emancipate them, they will fight for the South because they, kind of better the devil you know than the one you don't. And they were good soldiers. So Forrest said better Confederates never lived. You got anything you want to interject, Moose? I'm doing.
Oh, yeah, sir. One thing quickly, and we'll get to a quick commercial break, and I'll let you get back at it. But I've always find it interesting that they'll just plain up deny that there was any African-American Confederate soldiers. That's not true. That's a lie.
An out-and-out lie. And nobody who, several books have been written on it. You go to the internet, and all kinds of photos of black Confederate soldiers. In fact, the first, my first 35 books were Nazi Germany. I didn't get into the Confederate war until they started tearing down their monuments, which I look upon as an assault on history itself, and it is. But I wrote a book on the Red River campaign, And I mentioned there were black Confederate soldiers. Talk about sacrilege. Oh, wow, man, I got castigated. And so I wrote a second book, and I did what I usually do. I doubled down on it. But this time I was smart enough to include photographs. And you know what I heard?
What?
Crickets.
I have a similar story when I was in college. I was pretty heavily a debater of my history professors. I don't think any of them liked me. And so there was one class, and we were talking about General Forrest, and I don't know how it got on the topic, but we were talking about, African Americans in the Union. And I raised my hand, and I was like, well, that's some good stories. Are we going to talk about the African Americans in the Confederacy? She looked at me. There's no such thing. Yes, ma'am, there is. And at the time, Ole Miss had just had just gotten rid of the black bear. And the funny story about that is the fact that the two people in this story that we proudly posted as the history of our mascot, one of them was Teddy Roosevelt. The other was a black Confederate veteran. And here I am having to explain the history of a mascot that was just used at the University of Mississippi to a professor. And much like you, the next class, I showed up with pictures and articles and links and resources. And she just said that, well, we're not going to be discussing that today. So go figure. But we are going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back with Confronting Stupidity. Because that is the best way to sum up this book. As Dr. Mitcham says, I have enjoyed the Killing Lincoln book. It is one of the first books I read in college. And I just don't know what went wrong. I don't know if the ghostwriter he hired for this one just didn't know his history, or if something just has broken inside of Mr. O'Reilly. But this is just absolutely stupidity. To put General Forrest next to these men, I'm going to get off on a tangent, so I better stop and let Dr. Mitcham do the talking. But tonight's Pop-Tart Break is sponsored by SCVchat.com. If you want to find this episode in the future having trouble, check out SCVchat.com. It will be in the archived section, as well as 2 links will be going up. One to the article on the Abbeville Institute written by Dr. Mitcham, and another one when the video comes out and this episode officially stays on the air with a link. We'll be posting that as well. So check that out. As well as SCV Chat on Patreon for $2.50 a month. You can feed a moose with some general support. For $10 a month, you can become a real chat head and help us in reclaiming the narrative 1 week at a time. You get behind-the-scenes content, behind-the-scenes shows, exclusive shows, fun, just craziness, honestly. And, of course, you get your name at the end of the credits of every episode. And, of course, for $30 a month, you get exclusive merchandise that no one else will get. Not even me and Connor, the owners of SCV Chat. And, of course, for $80 a month, you can sponsor our show like Dr. Chris Cummins. Have you fallen off a fence recently? Have you somehow managed to poke your eye with a stick? Well, don't worry. Dr. Cummins will make you feel better and treat you with some good old-fashioned Southern hospitality, make you feel well, and get you back on the road again. If you've tweaked your knee, go check out Dr. Chris Cummins, MD of Oxford, Mississippi, and he will treat you right. We will be right back with Dr. Mitcham attacking, or let me rephrase, correcting, Confronting Evil, Mr. Bill O'Reilly's latest book.
I got into the SCV after receiving an award back when I was in high school. I had no clue what the SCV was. All I knew was that it was a rebel flag and it was supposed to be racist. I decided I would go and look further into it. Everything that we're taught from a very young age is that the Confederacy was wrong. They were treasonous. But it turns out It wasn't just because the South had slaves. This was because of a very fundamental principle of big government. There's nothing more American than keeping the government in line. It's what we were bred to do. It comes down from 1776, Declaration of Independence. It's because we decided to keep a government that we deemed tyrannical in line. That's what the true definition of the cause is. Me being a young Black American and being a part of the Sons of Confederate Veterans is a shock to a lot of people. The Black Confederate soldier would have had to have been one of the hardest working soldiers there was. These are men who decided to take up a cause because in the end, it was their own cause. In fact, most owners wanted the slaves to stay back because that was how they were steadily making income. They made a choice to do something that was bigger than themselves. And that's why, as a Black Confederate now, it is my duty that I owe them to do something greater than myself. Confederate history is American history, and you cannot separate the two. I am Sammy Travis, descendant of Private Benjamin Rowe, a Confederate veteran.
Always love that one, and always love the hate I get after playing that one, because, again, it attacks the false narrative that there were no African-American Confederate veterans, even though there is tons of evidence to the contrary. But we are back with Dr. Sandy Mitcham with correcting Bill O'Reilly's new book and the probably 3 or 4 ghostwriters, Confronting Evil. $44. Don't buy this book. $44 for this.
Ooh.
I know.
Huh. Yeah, buy that one. No way. That's a good one. But Bust Hell Wide Open is a good one, too. I enjoyed writing it. About Nathan Bedford Forrest. Now, I don't want the viewer to think Forrest was perfect. He wasn't.
Only one person
It was very profane, but not around women. He would not curse around women. And he had a fierce temper, but not around women. When he was about to explode and Marianne was around, all she had to do was touch his arm and say, "Bedford." That was the end of it. His major vice was gambling. But if you got to have a gambling problem, I'd rather have Forrest than anyone else, because at least 3 times he won the modern equivalent of $50,000 in one night. Once he won $100,000. Once he was down to his last $10, he was going to go out and play poker and replenish his fortune. And Marianne told him, "I'd rather go on half rations." And he ignored her, went out and won $2,500. The last time he went gambling, he had co-signed a note, and it was for $2,500. And the man defaulted, and it fell to Forrest to pay it. He didn't have the money. So he went out and gambled, said he was going to win the money, and she didn't like that one bit. It's the only thing I know of that ever caused stress in our marriage. Well, I got to have the money. He went out, and he said, pray that I win. And Marianne said, I most certainly will not. I will be on my knees the entire time you're gone, my Bible in my hand, praying for your eternal conviction. And Forrest won the money, and the other gamblers wanted him to continue to play, but he was picking up his winnings. Said, nope, I got a woman at home praying for me. I'm going to go home, sit in the rocking chair by her, and I will never gamble again. He never did. But he was really good at it, and he was really good at it on the battlefield. There's a parallel there. Riley has him running around at a whorehouse, a brothel, the Go-So Hotel. Nobody there's ever, of course, all the people who were there then are gone, but nobody's ever heard of that before. He was drinking a particular type of rum, a very specific Barbados rum. Forrest didn't drink. Forrest drank once in his life. That was recorded. He was a teenager. He wanted to know what it's like to be drunk. And because of his temper, he was afraid he'd hurt somebody if he did it downtown. So he went into the woods and got drunk, came back. Next morning, he had a terrible hangover, but he also had typhoid fever, which killed a lot of people in those days and almost killed him. And he told God, prayed, and said, if you let me live, I'll never drink again. And he pretty much kept that promise. The only exception to the rule was during the war when he was wounded and the doctors prescribed a whiskey as an anesthetic. He drank then. But that was it. He did not drink. I've never heard of him smoking. I didn't recognize the person they described in this book. And I lived with Forrest for 2 years. When you write a biography like that, you got to immerse yourself. And I did. And no parallels. And the last thing he would do was cheat on his wife. He, according to O'Reilly, was ordered by Jefferson Davis to take Fort Pillow. He wasn't. Davis had no idea he was going to do it and probably could cared less, to tell you the truth. He kind of gave Forrest his head. He rode up to Fort Pillow on a white stallion named King Philip. Well, King Philip did exist, but I doubt if he rode up to Fort Pillow on him because first thing Forrest did was go on a reconnaissance and his horse was shot out from under him and killed. And he got on another horse and it was shot and killed. And he got on a third horse and it was wounded. It lived. Forrest had 29 horses shot out from under him. 18 of them died. He also killed 30 Yankees in one-on-one combat. And I guess you could call that a weakness because he enjoyed combat. He did not like war. But he put an advertisement in a Memphis paper trying to recruit troops. He said, come on, boys, let's have some fun and kill some Yankees. Well, he meant that. He killed 30. He probably wounded 50 or 60. He killed 2 Confederates. Running away when Forrest was your commander was not a really good idea. He killed a gunfighter in the streets of Fernando, Mississippi before the war, wounded or crippled his partner. And he killed a wife beater. Thomas Freeman, I believe his name was. He beaten his wife badly twice, and Forrest paid the doctor to make the house calls to treat her. And he went to Shantytown, which predominantly black, and told them that they had not been trained in medicine, obviously. And he told them the pools of water were breeding Anopheles mosquitoes, which could give you malaria. caused cholera and all sorts of diseases in those days. And these black folks had never heard of that at all. And he told them, get some shovels and hose and we'll drain this water and save your children's life. Well, they immediately did it. And except for this guy, Thomas, who that he wasn't going to do it. He didn't take orders from Forrest or any other man. And his supper had better be ready, or he was going to beat his wife again. And that made Forrest mad. And the next thing you know, you hear the sound of a whip. He's beating her with a whip. And she's screaming. And Forrest went into the house and said, you stop it. Stop it right now. And if you ever beat her again, I'll beat you. See how you like it. And he stopped beating the woman, but he pulled a knife and cut Forrest on the hand. Forrest hit him, knocked him down. He scrambled for the knife. The wood pile was inside in this particular house. Well, Forrest picked up an axe. And when he came back, Forrest hit him in the head with it. And I thought the transcript of the trial was rather funny because Forrest said, but I only hit him once. I'm thinking, General Forrest, how many times do you think you've got to hit a man in the head with an axe before you do him in? And he made no effort to use the flat end. He used the blade and was tried. Reconstruction jury. It was black and white. The magistrate was black, but they acquitted him and said it was self-defense. Anyway, that was some of Forrest's problems. Now, King Philip was very interesting. I don't wish we had time to go into him. But,
well, I mean, this book is full of lies. A couple of my favorites. First off, I love how slavery is just thrown on the South exclusively. Not going to talk about any of the racism going on up in the Union. None of that today. But also, you talked about this. Robert E. Lee controls the East. Forrest oversees Confederate forces in the West.
Well, he missed it by several dozen Confederate generals who were senior to Forrest, including Joseph E. Johnston, who actually commanded the Western Front, and Forrest's Army commanded the Army of Mississippi. At that time was Neolitis Polk, a bishop in civilian life, and lieutenant general. The most egregious thing that really stood out to me was they said he got the name Wizard of the Saddle from the victory he won at Fort Sanders in Knoxville, Tennessee in November of 1863. Well, yeah, I spent 3 years in Knoxville, Tennessee as a doctoral student, and I never heard anybody claim it was a Confederate victory. Confederates under Longstreet suffered 813 casualties. The Yankees suffered 13 casualties. That's a 62.5 to 1 ratio. You could find worse Confederate defeats, but I can't think of any offhand. Forrest was nowhere near the place. Knoxville in East Tennessee. He was in North Mississippi at the time. And they say it was anything but a Confederate victory. I have no idea how somebody could get a fact that wrong.
It is astonishing, but sometimes history can be challenging. Let's ask a simple question. Dr. Mitcham, as a man who studied General Forrest, here's an easy one. How many kids did he have?
Now what? I'm sorry?
How many children did General Forrest have?
Oh, they got that wrong too. He had 2. O'Reilly was kind enough to give him 2 more, but he didn't have them. And one of those died when she was 5. kind of sad there. Her grave is in Elmwood Cemetery in Memphis. And I just kind of felt sorry for the family when I saw the grave. His son was a captain at the end of the war. Not a very brave man, but he was much different. He was more like Marianne. And that pleased Forrest. Forrest didn't want his children to be like him. In fact, it was kind of funny when he proposed marriage to Marianne. She wanted to, but in those days, you had to have daddy's permission. Her father was dead, so he had to get permission from her guardian, Reverend Cowan, who was not not real happy about Bedford Forrest becoming a member of the family. And they talked, and he said, why do you want to marry her? She's an introvert, well-educated. You're extroverted. You're not well-educated. You're violent. You fight. You have gunfights, and you gamble. You're nothing like her. And Forrest said, I don't want to marry anybody like me. I want to marry a Christian girl.
Smart
and
man.
He did, and it worked out great. And she finally got him baptized, but took a while.
I just want to point out, even Wikipedia gets the amount of children General Forrest has right. A simple Google search would have helped you out, Mr. O'Reilly, so much. There's not even a lot of research that goes into that.
No, and there's not any room for any latitude for mistake. That's unforgivable.
This whole book is this whole chapter and another chapter is completely unforgivable. Just completely.
Yeah, and if you were doing a book on evil, why don't we do the New England slave traders? They killed a whole lot more black folks than the Confederate Army ever did.
Or
that was the worst part. They called it the Middle Passage. Mm-hmm. The Africans were initially, over 90% of them, were enslaved by other Africans, and they sold them to the New England flesh peddler, who put them on the slave ships, which didn't even have straw for them to lay on. They had bare floors. They estimate that 24 to 25 million slaves were transported from Africa to the New World. 4 to 5 million of them died. We don't even know within a million how many did die. They died, just throw them away into the ocean. And when they finally reached Brazil or wherever they were going to, only 6% of them arrived in the American South. It usually took them weeks to recover. Reading
you could talk about Korea that had slavery for, let's see here, around 1,500 years. Talk about their contributions to that, their evil.
Yeah, I was talking to Jason Bashir about it the other day. There are estimated 30 million slaves in the world today, which is more than there were in 1861, mostly in Asia and Africa.
Could talk about that and trying to bring light to that in that. Nope. Let's just talk about the South.
Yeah, and as long as we're, we got to rename all these southern places. Let's talk about some up north, like New York and New York City. New York was named after James Stewart, the Duke of York, who later became James I. He owned the Africa Company, which exported 500,000 to 600,000 slaves to the New World. He made a fortune. He's a great slave trader. So if we got to rename things, New York is the first thing we need to rename. I recommend the Nana Nana Boo Boo State. But those people are crazy. They're going to elect a communist, I think, in a couple of days as the mayor of New York City. Yeah, Walter Kennedy says Brown University was named after a Yankee slave trader. No doubt about it. They're trying to use intellectual breakdancing to avoid the stigma. Mm-hmm. So they're naming it after Brown's family, not Brown. But that's pretty thin. If I couldn't do any better than that, I wouldn't try.
It's just glorious, anyway, all of it.
Back to Fort Pillow. Riley says almost all the Yankees died. Somebody enjoyed my 99 Boo state. That's good. There are articles written on how many people were killed at Fort Pillow. I'm not surprised O'Reilly's ghostwriter couldn't find them. But the number in the garrison was 585 to 650. This according to Professors Chimprich and who was the other one? Oh, wow. Manafort, I believe it was. The number killed was 277 to 297. More blacks were killed than whites. There were some atrocities. Of course, part of the problem was the Confederates scaled the wall, and first thing they did was capture barrels of whiskey and beer and ale and loaded up their canteens. The Lincoln report said some Confederates were drunk. Well, yeah, you provided them with the liquor, your people did. But Confederate losses were 14 killed and 86 wounded. It's an unfortunate thing. It did happen. I think, like I say, Forrest was hurt when his horses were shot out from under him. And the first 20 minutes of the battle, he was in the rear area, which is not where he usually was. I think it was because of the wound. But he let them have their way with the fort and put an end to it. When he did enter the fort, he actually rode between one of his groups who were about to shoot some African Americans and the African Americans who were trying to surrender. So he saved their lives. Anyway, again, O'Reilly gets everything wrong. After heard about Fort Pillow, Lincoln in his righteous indignation ended the prisoner exchange. No, actually he did that the year before. You can't pin that on Fort Pillow, but he did. And the bad thing is a lot of people will believe this nonsense.
It's a sad truth that because he has, let's see what he has on the book here. Author of 19 number one bestsellers. This lovely picture in the back, trailblazing TV journalist. He's going to get a lot of people. And then the ghostwriter, Josh Hammer, studied political theory at George Washington University and international politics at the University of Cambridge, Scotland. He writes and produces many successful programs. The O'Reilly Update with Bill O'Reilly. I'm just shocked that y'all said that was a successful program. That's like me going on another program and saying, guys, I am the co-founder and producer of a very successful program called SCV Chat. No one else is calling it a successful program, just me. But, just all this crap. I wish we had more time to get into it.
Well, I'm down to point 28 here. I think you got the idea, though. It's pretty horrible. He even got the number of men General Lee surrendered at Appomattox wrong. He said it was 8,000. That's horrible. There wouldn't have been anything left.
I didn't get to that part, but that just.
Well, I don't blame you.
It's a hard read.
Yeah, just a book I never did get to finish was Mein Kampf. It was so hard to read. Of course, I was reading it in German, but I got about 4/5 of the way through it. This one was kind of in that same category.
You had to read it. You had to, because of just the amount of lies. Like, guys, we have been on the air for an hour and 10 minutes. And in an hour and 10 minutes, we have not been able to cover all the lies in, what would you say, Dr. Mitchell? Maybe like, let's see here. I'm about to count how many pages. So let's see here. Starts on page 86. Let's see what it ends on. Let's just do some simple math for some country people out there. Let's see here. 14 pages of lies, and we are an hour and 10 minutes in, and we haven't covered them all.
Well, we've covered about 2/3 of them. I want to briefly cover the Ku Klux Klan.
Oh, please do.
He talks about the Colfax Massacre. I did a paper on that as a grad student. I wish I still had it. Somebody borrowed it and never returned it. But it happened in 1873, and of course, he tries to blame Forrest for it. Forrest joined the Klan in 1866, got out in early 1869. He was out of it 4 years when this happened. And, of course, O'Reilly mentions that he was 600 miles. He does mention he was in Memphis, 600 miles away from Colfax. He didn't even bother to get that right. Colfax was only 390 miles from Memphis.
Google search Mr. O'Reilly, learn it.
And I could discuss the Colfax Massacre, but I'm not going to bother. Forrest joined the Klan. It was very much different than what it became later, because you had people, you had some nuts out there, frankly. Governor Brownlow of Tennessee wanted a second war, and he wanted all former Confederates exterminated. And he used the word exterminated. And Forrest wanted to set up a paramilitary organization to stop that. The South was defenseless. The Confederate Army was gone. He didn't want things like the Union League actually murdering people, and they were talking about it. Brownlow had a bill before the legislature. Anybody who shot an ex-Confederate on site, that was legal. And Thaddeus Stevens was just as bad. You had Spoon's butler out there, Jim Lane of Kansas, Governor Andrew Hamilton of Texas, carpetbagger. They were all talking about wiping the Confederates out, the ex-Confederates, the Southerners, men, women, and children. Forrest took it seriously. He had to. So he formed he joined the Klan, and it immediately exploded. It was a historic brush fire. Forrest at one time said he could have 50,000 armed men tomorrow and 500,000 armed men in addition to that by the end of the week. Well, nobody wanted to fight a cavalry army of 500,000 men led by Nathan Bedford Forrest. So they kind of cooled it a little bit. When Brownlow resigned as governor, Forrest issued General Order No. 1 abolishing the Klan. Now, some of Forrest's parsons say that he never was a member of the Klan. Well, he was. He testified in front of Congress that he wasn't, but then later told some friends that I lied like a gentleman. And he didn't like what the Klan was becoming, so he ordered it dissolved. Problem is, it didn't really dissolve, but it it paled in significance after the end of Reconstruction.
I mean, and people also fail to mention his times talking about civil rights. That also somehow vanishes out of people's minds.
Well, the second incarnation of the Klan happened in 1915. Birth of a Nation came out, a film that was shown at the White House by the president and former governor of New Jersey, Woodrow Wilson. And it glorified the Klan. And it did explode and kind of settled down again. Now I think it probably got less than 10,000 members. I don't really know.
Oh, it's I heard it was worse than that.
Well,
I hope so.
I don't know. I haven't researched the modern Klan. I'm not going to. But I wish the second incarnation of the Klan, the 1915 version, had not pirated the name of the original Klan. Had they not done so, we would think differently of the Klan than we do today. Unfortunately, they did. And there's nothing to be done for it, but blaming Nathan Bedford Forrest for it 39 years after his death is a little bit funny. That is...
It has to be General Forrest's masterstroke to influence something 39 years after his passing. I mean, that's some reach.
That stretches credibility far beyond the breaking point. But then this whole chapter.
Yeah.
Oh, if I had a grad student to turn this in, I'd recommend he found another career. I would. You're obviously not cut out to be a professor or student or history or teacher. I think you'd probably have an exciting and rewarding career in the pizza delivery business or the housekeeping business or the car wash. They need people. But you're sure not going to be a historian. Anyway.
You could have a career in fiction.
O'Reilly has got a following. He's good at making money. You got to admire him for that. But try to get it right at least.
There was no effort. They're like, I mean, again, fire who wrote this and who edited this. How did so many mistakes make it through? And the answer is they were just lying about General Forrest to appease a certain group of people, to put them in the book, to make some headlines, to sell some books, and of course, continue more to attack the South and a great man.
Well, I think also he pandered to the African Americans.
Oh, yeah.
Make them mad, and then maybe they'd buy the book.
Yeah.
I would recommend to save their money, but that's...
I would recommend anybody who is thinking to buy this. And this is one of the first times on the show's history that we actually have a book review ending in me saying, don't buy this. And I plead with you, don't give the man any more money than he already has. He's fine. And this just doesn't deserve to be a top-selling book. It's historically inaccurate. I ask everybody, please share this episode out to as many people, groups, SCV or non-SCV that you can, because again, people need to know about these lies. It is strictly a tragedy that this is being considered a historical book and full of historical fact.
Well, I'm not sure it's a lie. I mean, a lie is a deliberate attempt to deceive. I'm afraid some people, they may actually believe this garbage. But surely O'Reilly shouldn't. I mean, if he even bothered to check it.
I don't think he did.
You think he even read it?
I would almost put money on that he didn't. I mean, again, 14 pages. We spent an hour and 10 minutes covering it. We could probably film a whole other episode on it. You have a video coming out, or the SCV does. You've already done an article on the Abbeville Institute. And that's just 14 pages of this book. I would put money that he never read it, because if he did, even he would sit back and be like, all right. There's so many glaring mistakes. Again, the child thing is the perfect example that no one proofread this. No one went through there with historical records and resources and actually read it. You have a political science major and Bill O'Reilly writing it.
Yeah, probably an 8th grade dropout. But it's horrible. But he did a good job in killing Lincoln, and killing Patton was not bad. You know, I've written 35 books on the Second World War, and he got I think I found one problem with one fact. It's pretty good.
Whoever edited and wrote that book, Mr. O'Reilly, you need to hire them back, because it's obviously not this person.
Killing Lincoln was good. I'd like to talk to him about that, because I have a theory that I put in the book, The Retribution Conspiracy. I think you may have read it. I don't know. It's my only novel, and it's the only book that ever won a literary prize with a nice stipend. And I took the theory that Abraham Lincoln was assassinated by the Confederate Secret Service.
I remember that.
I think I made a good case. I mean, I can prove that Booth received the modern equivalent of $40,000 from the Secret Service. And I don't know how you feel about it, but if I paid you $40,000, you'd be working for me.
Pay me $40,000 tomorrow. You just tell me what you need me to do.
But Lewis Powell, called Lewis Terrible, sliced up the Secretary of State to the point you could look at his cheek and see his tongue. He was connected with it. And John Surratt was a courier for the Secret Service for 3 years. So the Confederate Secret Service was definitely on the periphery, but I couldn't pin it down as well as I wanted to make it a history book, because, well, you know, it stands to reason. If a Secret Service can be traced 150 years after it ceases to exist, you don't have to ask, was it any good or not? You know it wasn't worth a hoot. And these guys were very good, so you couldn't really pin them down. But a novel is governed by its own rules. You don't have to pin it down. And
this would make a great novel, because there's no evidence. It's just all make believe.
But
at least you actually put in some historical fact and tried to come up with conclusions.
That's what I did, and it would never be popular up north, because the Confederate Secret Service assassinates Lincoln, and most of them get away with it, which is what I think happened. I mean, they're going to hang Lewis Powell. They caught him. Going to hang him the next day, and he'd befriended the Assistant Secretary of War, Dana was his name. And he visited him the night before he was to be executed, and wished him well in the afterlife. And, said their final goodbyes, and he was walking out the door of the jail cell, and he turned to Powell and said, "Did we get them all? Did we capture everybody?" And Powell laughed at him and said, "You ain't got half of us yet." And I really had no reason to lie about it. And I hung him the next morning. But anyway, I digress. I imagine your viewers have had enough of me for the night.
Well, I would like to ask everybody to thank Dr. Mitcham for coming on tonight. This is an episode I was looking forward to since early October when we talked about it, but we wanted to wait until the video was a bit more far done. Speaking of which, if you want to see how we, the SCV, can stop this attack by Mr. O'Reilly, please watch Commander's Comments this Thursday at 7 p.m. Confederate Standard Time and hear about the video or the SCV video that will answer Mr. O'Reilly's lies. And, of course, check out the article on the Abbeville Institute, Confronting Stupidity by Dr. Mitcham.
And also Ron Kennedy. He will talk about the Union League, the Union equivalent of the Ku Klux Klan.
Ooh, I can't wait to hear about that.
Yeah, it was a pretty trashy bunch, too.
I can't wait to hear about it. Again, thank you for coming on, Dr. Mitcham. I'm going to ask everybody to please share this episode out just one more time, please. And make sure you tune in to Commander's Comments this Thursday, as well as Tennessee Tuesday tomorrow at 7 p.m. Confederate Standard Time. Wednesday, Look Around Florida, the same time. Friday, Friday Night Lights. And the Friends of Douglas Southall Freeman group. And, of course, Sunday, Hardy on History. We got a lot of great shows lined up for everybody, and these men really work hard on these shows. It's very hard to make weekly content. Trust me, it can drive you crazy. So please check them out. More information on Tennessee Tuesdays and Commander's Comments will be on the SCV Chat, Facebook, and Instagram soon. Thank you all for watching. And in the words of the late, great Harold Philpott, remember, no fumar in the elevator and rare frog. Good night.